Impeachment trial formally begins on Tuesday. A shocking new book will hit the shelves, giving a revealing look at the Trump presidency. A Very Stable Genius by Washington Post reporters Carol Leonnig and Phil Rucker portrays the president as erratic and at times, quote, dangerously uninformed. According to excerpts released in the Post, at one point, the president did not seem to grasp the fundamental history surrounding the attack on Pearl Harbor. It also details a president with a fundamental lack of understanding for basic geography, as Trump tells India's prime minister, quote, it's not like you've got China on the border. Joining me now are two people who've spent time working with this president, former senior White House official Omarosa Manico-Newman and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House, which I enjoyed reading. It was a lot of fun. And former Trump campaign advisor Sam Nunberg. Happy to have you both with me. We'll go ladies first here. Omarosa, does anything that you've seen from this book so far surprise you?
You know, nothing really surprises me. It seems to be a continuation of, Fire and Fury came out right before my book. My book kind of picked up from there and covered the first year. And this book has covered since my departure. And it's much of the same. Donald Trump clearly is not equipped to be president of the United States. I mean, some of these stories kind of gave me PTSD because it reminded me of what it was like to sit in those cabinet meetings or in the Oval talking to Donald Trump, who had the attention of a fruit fly. I mean, these stories really capture who he is as the commander-in-chief, as well as the leader of the free world. And it's very, very alarming.
What is alarming is what I read in this excerpt. And I want to ask you, in your perspective, your experience there, what is it like when this president has one of his angry fits, when he gets upset, and Sam's smiling as well, so I can ask you both. I mean, is it well represented in this excerpt here in the Washington Post? Does he really go off the rails?
Oh, he does. I mean, he goes from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. And over the most trivial things, he starts to scream. He turns orange red. He starts to kind of motion and emote. And the louder he gets, and he doesn't want you to leave because everybody wants to kind of edge away. But in my book, I called it Trump going nuclear because he would have these tantrums and there was no way to calm him down. And then an hour later, he would call you and try to have a normal conversation. It was not normal at all.
Sam, you want to add to that?
Well, in my experience, it's been the same. And what I would say is when I got those normal conversations, maybe Omarosa would agree with me, it was more of kind of him trying to apologize. So he would know that he blew his gasket, and then he would speak to you as if nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Or occasionally he would even say, "Look, I want to make sure you're following up on what we talked about." But there were some instances in this book where Philip Rucker, who I've dealt with, I've never dealt with Miss Leonnig. The president didn't deal with them. He didn't take the interview for this book. And what I do see, though, is that some of these people do have sour grapes. Some of them should not have been in the administration to begin with, such as former Secretary of State, who was put in there by Condoleezza Rice. And if people didn't like the fundamental views that the president came in with, they were more than welcome to not wait to get fired. They should have resigned. And some of the things that they are complaining about, such as the president telling the Pentagon, look, you don't know how to win wars. I don't agree with what you're explaining to me about why we have certain bases or relationships. This was, as Omarosa would tell you, for better or worse, adjudicated in the election. He spoke about this in the primary. He spoke about this in the general election. Yeah, but a lot of these things were kind of cowardly,
though, Sam. You have to admit. I mean, the man has a fear of firing people face to face, so he has these antics. And he talks about his love for the military, but he has quite disdain for these generals and how he's handled them.
But I say there's a distinction there, respectfully, Omarosa. The issue is the rank-and-file soldiers, he does. But if you look at, for instance, when we talk about the Washington Post, the Pentagon Papers, when we saw what, presidents such as Barack Obama and George W. Bush have suffered under the Pentagon leadership when they are lied to, and the public is lied to about the way the Afghanistan occupation and war is going.
Yeah, so, but Sam, here's something that was said in this Washington Post excerpt that would really back up what Omarosa is saying. He's saying to his generals, I wouldn't go to war with you people. You're a bunch of dopes and babies.
Yeah,
this was a fit. It happened at that 2017 meeting at the Pentagon that was set up after Trump's military leaders were concerned about what they thought were his gaping holes in his knowledge of America's key alliances. I mean,
and I think it's time for us to stop apologizing for his bad behavior. I mean, Sam, you saw it up close and personal, right. And I think it's time for us to ring the alarm that Donald Trump is dangerous and he is damaging our democracy. I mean, some of the things that I witnessed, and particularly the cabinet meetings and how he talked to people. I saw in this book, they're referencing how he talked to Kirsten. I mean, there is no excuse for how he belittled her and put her down and talked about her looks and not necessarily about her performance because she pushed back. But there's no excuse for the way this president has behaved, and we have to stop trying to protect him by coming up with those anecdotes like you shared, Sam.
And Sam,
but I would say, too, the president's problem.
I want to ask you this before you say that. Do you think the president has gaping holes in his knowledge relative to the job that he was elected to do? Do you think he is dangerously uninformed in those areas?
I think that he is dangerously intellectually uncurious. I think that the president does know what he doesn't know, and he doesn't care. I had this problem with him when I mean, it's in Michael Wolff's book, when I was trying to teach him the Constitution or go over certain debate questions.
So Sam,
yes.
are there gaping holes relative to the job that he was elected to do?
Does he have gaping holes? I mean, look, I wouldn't want to ask the president about his education policy and what is going on with Betsy DeVos. I wouldn't necessarily ask him what is going on with certain other departments that aren't coming to my mind. On the other hand, if you ask him about trade, if you ask him about tax relief, if you ask him about the budget, if you ask him about immigration, he would. So once again, he is not intellectually curious. If there are certain issues that are not even he can't substitute any type of knowledge for or any type of life experience, or he doesn't feel people necessarily care, then he doesn't want to listen to them at all.
Did you hear, Omarosa, about this 2017 meeting? Because you were still on the White House staff at the time.
Yeah, but can I just harken back a little bit? I mean, you know, it's not just that he's not curious. There's something neurological going on with Donald Trump. And I'm not a doctor, but I will tell you what I observed back in 2003 when I first met the man and when I last spoke with him. There is some disconnect with his ability to process basic information. It's not just that he doesn't know geography, that he doesn't know the basic terminology of the government or the structure and the functions. It's that he doesn't comprehend that these decisions that he makes, comments and statements, have impact around the world. That's what he doesn't grasp, is that his ignorance is destroying our country.
Can I ask you guys quickly, because I'm being told in my ear that we're running up against time. Sam, impeachment trial a couple days away from getting that underway. What do you think the mood is in the White House?
Well, I'm sure there is apprehension from the point of view of, look, the president has assembled a team that he is comfortable with, a team that he has watched on television. However, the ultimate issue is whether or not the president will one day just decide, look, I'm going to go down and I'm going to speak, and that's it. I don't care what Chief Justice Roberts says. I'm going to go speak. I'm not going to take questions. Ultimately, this is going to be a political issue. What I see here, if we get more into the fundamentals, is the president needs to be worried about how independents take this. The Republicans have one point of view and the Democrats have one point of view. The fact of the matter is there's around a third to 45% of independents that have been flipping on and off about whether or not the president should be removed. And I hope that he would just listen to his legal team and let them make substantive arguments. What you saw with this legal team was a concession by the president that he needs to allow the senators that are going to vote to dismiss him, and they will, probably by party line vote, to have a constitutional reason to, substantive legal reason to.
Can I
speak to that?
Sure.
Because as a staffer who actually worked in the White House during the Clinton impeachment, I can tell you what it feels like to have to go to work every day with this looming over your head. They're terrified because, as you saw with the Clinton impeachment, it started out as a real estate deal going bad and turned into something else. Everyone knows that this is not a done deal, although we keep hearing that narrative from the right. Anything can happen in this hearing that could actually remove the president from office, and that's what hangs over their head every single day.
Omarosa, Sam, very good conversation.